Good afternoon and welcome to the Magnusson Match Ups series. I'm Heather Zeisis and I'm the Director of Communications at the Magnusson Group. I will be moderating today's discussion, Maintaining a Healthy Relationship with Personal Property. The purpose of our new matchup series is to introduce our clients and customers to other esteemed professionals in our networks who care about your personal property. Joining us this morning is Lynn Magnusson, President of the Magnusson Group, and Matt Mignon, a Wealth Advisor at RegentAtlantic. Both have headquarters here in Morristown, New Jersey. And Lynn and Matt met through the Estate Planners Group a few years ago and have advised their clients about their personal property ever since. Thank you both for being here today. Now, to begin today's discussion. Tangible personal property feels more important and vital than ever these days. After more than a year of shutdowns, especially with quarantining, many of us are now looking around our homes with perhaps a renewed interest. Objects like sterling silver tea sets, inherited works of fine and decorative art all tell a story, sometimes very important stories of the current or previous owners. And that provenance can be shared and enjoyed with others. Now that the world is partially reopening and we are seeking pockets of renewed activity in the market, people are eager to expand their knowledge base of tangibles with regard to acquiring insurance or passing along to its next appreciative owner. That said, why don't we start off first with defining what personal property is and what an appraiser does? Lynn, why don't you begin our dialogue by answering this first question?
Well, thank you very much, Heather, for putting together this little program with Matt and myself. I think it will be a good way to introduce our clients to Matt's clients and Matt's clients to us. So I hope that it's beneficial for all of the people who get to watch this. So first of all, the definition of tangible personal property is really a very broad topic. And tangible means that it can be touched. Personal property means that it can be owned. Basically, it's defined as pretty much anything that has ever been created. So that's a lot of things over a long period of time, obviously, from ancient artifacts to contemporary paintings and everything in between. What it is not real estate or intellectual property or a business entity. It's everything else. So let me provide some examples. So obviously there's furnishings and art, but there's also things like textiles and metal objects like the aforementioned sterling tea service. There's also gems and jewelry. And then on the other side, there's automobiles and wine. There are collectibles like sports memorabilia, comic books, coins. So if you've ever watched the Antiques Roadshow or Pawn Stars or a fan of American Pickers, you will see different parts of a typical appraiser's life. In short, an appraiser will identify and value personal property. Now, an appraiser is grounded in academia, connoisseurship on one side, and market knowledge on the other. So those required skills, or you've got to have the education, the connoisseurship skills developed, and an understanding of the world's vast and varied and accessible marketplaces, from everything from institutions like museums and libraries to retail establishments, auction houses, all the way to charities and the scrapyard. So a trusted appraiser can really be an asset to a client and can provide invaluable advice to a client's collection.
Thank you for such a thorough answer. So Matt, could you tell us about what you do at RegentAtlantic and how you help advise your clients in regard to these tangible personal property assets, like Lynn just mentioned, art, automobiles, and jewelry, for example?
Of course, and thank you again for having me today. I'm excited to be here. So as you mentioned, Heather, in your introduction, RegentAtlantic, we are a fee-only financial planning firm, and the way that we define wealth management is the integration of investment management and also financial planning, and that's where the financial planning piece is where we can add value for clients on the tangible personal property side. So my personal interest started from my own passion and interest in timepieces. And I recognized over a number of years that many of our clients were collectors themselves and or inherited tangible personal property. And sometimes clients would come to us and ask for advice. And I was really glad that they did, because there are many ways that we can assist our clients in this capacity as their financial advisor. Simply put, it aligns with our overall objective of understanding our client's full financial picture. So it's a great way that we can add value. So the question, how do I help advise clients? That varies. It varies depending on the situation. So as I mentioned, there are the collectors, and then there are folks that inherit tangible property. So let's start with the collectors. For them, it's often their passion. They tend to be the subject matter experts. They have a very good understanding of what they own and what they have. And it's because of this that my conversations are mostly focused on estate planning and tax planning. So the discussions we have and the questions I ask are things like, what is your plan for this collection? Is it accounted for in your estate plan? Is gifting during your lifetime something of interest? And that can be gifting to family and friends or to charity. And depending on what the answers are and what our clients' goals are, we can help our clients achieve those goals as efficiently as possible from a tax and estate planning perspective. At the end of the day, it's just, tangible property is just like any other asset. It's important to plan for it, and it is an asset. It's neat though, because there can be very unique planning opportunities associated with them. And there's oftentimes sentimental value that's not there for a traditional stock or bonds. So there's certain family dynamics that we have to work with when working with our clients. Now, for clients that inherit property, they might not be as knowledgeable about the property that they inherit or passionate. So in these situations, it's important to understand their goals. If they're interested in selling or they would like an appraisal, then connecting my clients to a trusted advisor like Lynn or her team is a great first step. If they want to keep the items, maybe there's that sentimental value, then it's still important to potentially understand what the property is worth through a qualified appraisal. And it's also important to make sure that the items are properly protected from both a physical perspective, so properly displaying or properly storing the property, and also from an insurance perspective, and that would fall under property and casualty insurance. So those are some of the ways in general that we can help our clients as holistic financial planners with their personal tangible property.
Thank you so much. Again, another wonderful, thorough response. So on that note, Lynn, what is the best advice an appraiser can give to a client?
Wow. Okay. Well, the best advice is to engage one. Actually, I recommend inventorying your collections, your home contents. Essentially, in the beginning, people call and they just want to know how much is my stuff worth? And there are a lot of different answers for that. And that's a subject for a different little webinar and the different types of valuations that there are. But I would recommend inventorying home contents and collections initially for the purpose of risk reduction and insurance acquisition. At least the most valuable items should be cataloged and photographed. Then you have a record of what you own. It seems pretty basic, but you'd be surprised how few people actually understand the scope and value of their home contents, especially if they have inherited things they really don't know, or if they've heard, oh, well, grandma told me that this was worth a lot of money. Well, maybe it was worth a lot of money back then, but it might have a different value now, including the sentimental value. So until there's a loss or a disaster, which few people are prepared for, I usually recommend just get the inventory. You don't even have to do the appraisal, but you do need to have the connoisseurship skills to be able to identify the property. So you can't just call something a thing. It's got to have some more characteristics of value added into that inventory so that in case of a loss or disaster, you've got the proper documentation for the item prior to the loss. So moving forward from that inventory, you can assign all kinds of value. It could be the replacement value for, replacement value for insurance scheduling purposes. You may want to assign cash value should you choose to sell it or distribute it. Then there's, of course, fair market value, et cetera. So, in my opinion, establishing a relationship with an appraiser and creating an inventory is probably the best first step that a client takes.
Sounds like really sound advice. Matt, are there any trends in wealth management that are worth mentioning when it comes to thinking about personal property?
That's a great question. The answer is yes and no. So let's start with the no. So I don't really notice many trends at the industry level, because my focus and my specialty service for our clients is quite unique in the space. What I do see are many articles and news headlines about how certain collectible asset classes have performed well as investments over the past few years. And that can include art, wine, timepieces. I'm sure we've all seen similar headlines or articles at one point or another over the past few years, because it's true. And that's interesting. And it's also really interesting that many of these collectibles are becoming more marketable and commoditized. There's companies out there where I can be an investor and purchase 5 shares of a piece of artwork, a Banksy, for example, and own a small portion of it. And I think that's a really interesting trend in the collectible space overall. But I say no trends for wealth management or financial planners, because that's where my focus for client is. It's on the financial planning side of things, not on the investing in property, intangible property side of things. And I think the financial planning side of this is often overlooked. Now, when it comes to that, what am I seeing at Regent Atlantic? Many of our clients are reaching out for appraisals and brokerage services to sell items. I think there's increased demand in that. I'm sure Lynn can attest. And my experience, and from my experience and observation, I think it has a lot to do with the pandemic. We've had a lot of time to look through our attics and basements and storage. And I've seen a lot of coin collections, stamp collections, sports memorabilia collections, which was mentioned earlier. These are all things that sometimes are found by surprise, but other times they're collections that have been in storage for many years or decades that we've finally had the time to dig up. And I think between the time and the headlines that I alluded to of all these collectible asset classes, increasing in value, people are wondering, what are these items worth? Can I sell them? How do I sell them? And what should I do with the proceeds? And that's the financial planning side of things. It's what are the implications? What are the options? And how to best go about that? And that's the part that I help our clients with. It's not so much the investing in collectibles aspect.
Lynn, I think you had a whiskey story.
I did. I was thinking about Matt's mention of sort of finding things in the attics and basements over the past year. And I'm thinking about a client, a family that we've worked for in the past on a couple of estates and asset planning projects. And so this client actually called us recently and asked us to come and look at some old booze that he found when cleaning out his father's home. And that old booze turned out to be some Prohibition era spirits, maybe a couple of boxes of them, so maybe there were, I don't know, maybe 40 bottles of these, maybe more, that eventually sold for tens of thousands of dollars. So the old booze that he was probably contemplating, should I just throw this down the sink or what? And having a relationship with an appraiser proved to be an incredibly fortunate thing for the family to realize this at the end of the day upon our recommendations of what it was, and then again what to do with it. And so Matt, maybe you'll be getting a call on, now I have all this money, what should I do with it?
Well, cheers to that.
Yeah.
So Matt, how do you include personal property in a typical wealth management plan?
Yeah, so personal property or collections can definitely be included in a financial or retirement plan. That especially makes sense if there's maybe an impending sale, if there's going to be proceeds that are either going to be used to purchase, used on another large purchase or expense, or to be reinvested into, you know, the client's traditional investment portfolio. But as I alluded to before, much of the planning is really focused on estate and tax planning, which are two really important pillars of wealth management that we focus on for clients. So on the tax planning side, we're tax efficient with everything that we do. It's one of our great value adds on the portfolio management side is how well we're able to manage taxes over time. But this tax efficiency includes tangible property as well. You know, simply put, when collectibles are sold or gifted, there could be tax consequences or benefits, and it's important to understand them, and it's important to think about them as you consider your options with tangible property. For estate planning, you know, to me, one of the most interesting parts or aspects of tangible property is that often some items or some of the property was in existence before we were all born, and it's also going to survive us. So it's important to plan for this property that's going to be around for a while, especially if it's well taken care of and there's no unfortunate circumstances where the property is damaged. And it could be as simple as including your collection in your will or estate plan, or it could be more complex due to family dynamics or how it just simply fits into your overall estate. So it's our job as financial planners to help you achieve your goals as efficiently as possible. I use the word efficiently a lot. It's important to think about these tax and estate implications when considering all factors.
Makes a lot of sense. And while we're on this topic, what do you want our Magnusson customers to know about you? How can a personal property advisor, for example, help your clients?
Sure. So I've touched a bit on RegentAtlantic and how we work with clients on the tangible property side. And I think, you know, the main takeaway that I would love to share is that we are fiduciaries. A fiduciary is a legally defined standard that we must act in the best interest of our clients. And I find it easiest to use life insurance as an example of how we operate in general as a fee-only fiduciary firm. So if we identify that a client has a need for life insurance through our financial planning, then what we do is we partner with them to obtain suitable life insurance at the best cost possible. We do not receive any commissions. That's the fee-only part of what we do. And we don't have any life insurance products to sell. We don't have any products to sell besides our services, and being investment management and financial planning. So this is similar to how we can help our clients with tangible property. And going back to your original question, how a personal property advisor can help our clients. So we often identify a need for an appraisal or a need for insurance coverage, or maybe a client is asking us how to sell their property. So just like I'm not a life insurance broker, I'm not a qualified appraiser, I'm not a property and casualty insurance broker, but we can identify those needs, hear our clients' goals, and partner with them to find trusted professionals, again, like the Magnusson Group when it comes to the services that you provide.
Great, thank you. And Lynn, how do appraisers and wealth managers work together?
Also a good question. And try to represent the clients in the same fashion. And as appraisers, we also act as fiduciary representatives of our clients. And we are also fee-based only for our appraisal services. So whether you are retaining us to appraise your wine collection or your art collection, it's just a fee-based project. It's not a percentage of value, because that would be incredibly unethical. We do help people figure out what to do with their collections should they need that, but the appraisal aspect of it is also much like Matt's, fiduciary and fee-based. And we respect the client's privacy while sharing this most pertinent information, mostly for risk reduction and to help them make decisions on what to do with their properties and how to plan for their property in the overall asset valuation process.
Great. And while we're on the topic of asset valuation process, could you explain to our viewers what fair market value means?
Oh, well, first of all, the term fair and fair market value is probably a relatively irrelevant adjective to apply. It's an IRS defined term that's used very specifically for the estimation of federal tax liability. Taxes are determined on the value of an asset, either on the date of death for estate tax or on the date of acceptance of a non-cash charitable contribution. An art painting to an art museum is a good example. It represents the amount of money paid by a willing buyer to a willing seller in an appropriate marketplace at a specific time, all things being known. So that's a pretty, it sounds like it's a broad and reasonable description of a valuation term, but there are many valuation terms, and they are assigned for different purposes. So an appraiser will always ask you why you want to know how much an item is worth. And it's not because we're trying to be nosy. It's because there are different values at different venues at different times. So for instance, if you are looking to sell an item, you might want to know, how much money am I going to put in my pocket at the end of the day? So you might want to understand the costs associated with selling an item, and if there are buyer's premiums or seller's premiums or shipping fees or costs to be absorbed. So that would be your cash market value. Or if you're splitting up items between family members or beneficiaries, you might want to know the cash value of the items, because somebody wants cash and somebody wants a piano. So there are different values, and fair market value is typically used just for federal tax purposes.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know that a lot of our viewers will also appreciate you clarifying different arenas, especially now that we've launched into auction and that we are introducing terms to our network, like buyer's premium and seller's premium. So that's very helpful. Lynn, I know that you're an integral part of an international appraisal conference coming up in Las Vegas at the end of this month. And I would love if you just told us a little bit more about it.
Sure. I'm really very excited and honored to be chairing the committee for the Personal Property Committee for the American Society of Appraisers International Appraisal Conference being held in Las Vegas later this month. I've been planning and organizing this component of the conference for almost a year. It came to me because I've been a part of the American Society of Appraisers for a pretty long time and have been through the ranks of the New Jersey chapter, from secretary to president since the turn of the century, and have been a part of the national committee for a couple of years now. So I'm in charge of, getting our speakers lined up and making sure their PowerPoints are in and all that stuff. So developing the curriculum, so to speak. So it's a very impressive lineup of industry experts from all around the globe. And I'm really looking forward to it. Probably one of the fun things that I'm looking forward to is the fact that at the same time that we're going to be there, Sotheby's will be conducting an auction in Las Vegas at the Bellagio of several Picasso works there. So different mediums of Picasso's will be there, including paint and ceramics. And it's the first time that Sotheby's has ever brought a United States evening auction outside of its New York headquarters. So I'm really looking forward to previewing that and being a part of that. And our keynote speaker was one of the creators of the projects associated with creating the exhibits originally. So I'm looking forward to her take on things.
That sounds like a really exciting trip, and I know that many people, art world and not, are going to be, viewing the auction to see what happens with the Picassos. So on that note, I'd like to conclude this session by asking you both, what's your why? And so Matt, why don't we start with you, please?
Sure, I love the question, and my answer is partnering for financial well-being. I really take pride in partnering with clients and helping them with anything related to money or finances. It's not just about the investments, as I spoke about today. It's ensuring our clients are comfortable with their overall financial picture, including their personal tangible property, and ultimately partnering with them so that they have that well-being.
Great. And Lynn?
Also a very good question. First of all, this job that I have started out with a love of the treasure hunt. And so I love being around beautiful objects and learning about things. And it's a never-ending source of entertainment to meet interesting people and their things. By nature, I am a teacher, a coach, and a problem solver. So I enjoy teaching people about their art or objects and coaching them through their personal property projects that they're faced with. And I get to meet so many interesting and passionate people and be around their fabulous objects without owning them. So I love mentoring other appraisers. I love working with our great team here at Magnusson, and helping people achieve their goals gives me great pleasure, whether it's giving someone peace of mind to toss out Aunt Hilda's old sewing machine, or donating it to the local historical society, or going through Aunt Hilda's jewelry box and hopefully striking gold. These are the kinds of things that makes the job very gratifying. Sometimes I'm a therapist to an executor client working through their parents' estate. Most of them have never been through this process before, and I get to teach them that I've actually been through this process probably 1,000 times, and I want to relieve their anxiety about knowing that they're doing the right thing. If they follow my instructions, I've got their best interests in mind.
Both great answers. So thank you both for being part of the maiden voyage of the Magnusson Match Ups today. Yay. And to our listeners and viewers, we hope you found this conversation both interesting and helpful. We are grateful for the opportunity to connect with Matt today. Thank you so much. And we look forward to sharing this interview with our clients and our customers online, and also through social media channels like Facebook and YouTube, and possibly Instagram as well. We'll be making this video available on our website shortly, so please check back soon for this link on our news page. And lastly, as this season continues to roll out, we'll be hosting a variety of in-person and virtual events, including an online furnishings and home decor auction right now based in Morristown. So stay tuned, and thank you all for watching. Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Matt.
Bye, you too. Thank you both.
Yeah.